2,000 years ago, before the fall of Rome, before the first mechanical clock, more than 1,000 years before the Renaissance, someone built a computer, not a metaphorical one, a device of more than 30 interlocking bronze gears that could predict the movements of the sun, the moon, and the planets, forecast eclipses decades into the future, and even track the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. Then it sank to the bottom of the sea, was lost for 2,000 years, and when we finally understood what it was, it forced us to admit something uncomfortable. The ancient world was far more advanced than we ever believed. This is the Antikythera Mechanism, and parts of it are still a mystery today. The story begins in the spring of 1900. A crew of Greek sponge divers sailing home from North Africa were caught in a storm and took shelter near a tiny island between Crete and the mainland, Antikythera. While they waited for the sea to calm, they dove for sponges. And about 45 meters down on the seabed, one of them found something extraordinary, a Roman cargo ship that had sunk around 2,000 years earlier. Over the next months, working with the Greek Navy, the divers pulled up a treasure trove of bronze and marble statues, coins, glassware, and jewelry. It's still one of the richest ancient shipwrecks ever discovered. But the most important object on that ship was something nobody even noticed at first. Among the haul was an unremarkable lump of corroded bronze, encrusted with 2,000 years of sea growth. Next to gleaming statues, it looked like junk. It was cataloged and set aside. For nearly a year, no one gave it a second thought. Then in May 1902, a Greek government minister named Spiridon Staios was looking at the recovered objects when the lump cracked open a little, and he saw something impossible for its age. A precisely cut gear wheel, like the inside of a clock. The problem was, clocks like that wouldn't be invented for well over 1,000 years. So what was a piece of clockwork doing on a ship that sank before the birth of the Roman Empire? Here is what makes this so hard to believe. Before this discovery, historians were confident about the timeline of technology. Gears this small, this precise, arranged in complex trains, that kind of engineering simply doesn't appear in the record until medieval European clockmakers, around the 14th century. That's a gap of roughly 1,400 years. It's as if we dug up a working laptop in a castle from the Middle Ages. The Antikythera Mechanism didn't just push the timeline back a little, it tore a hole in it, and we still don't fully understand how the knowledge to build it was lost so completely. So how old is it? Here we have to be honest about what we know and what we don't. The shipwreck itself is dated quite firmly to around 70 to 60 BCE by the coins and pottery on board. The mechanism was made before that, but exactly when is still debated. Most estimates put its construction somewhere between 150 and 100 BCE, though some researchers argue for dates as early as 205 BCE. That's more than a century of uncertainty. What everyone agrees on is the bottom line. This device is roughly 2,000 to 2,200 years old, and nothing else like it survives from the ancient world. Today, the mechanism survives as 82 fragments, worn and broken. But hidden inside were more than 30 bronze gears. Some experts count closer to 40, each hand-cut, some only a couple of millimeters thick, stacked in delicate layers. On the side was a single crank. Turn it, and the whole system of gears came to life at once, driving pointers across dials on the front and back. The front showed the heavens. The back kept the calendars. To reconstruct how it all fit together, researchers spent over a century piecing the fragments back together, and the full picture only emerged in the last 20 years. On the front face was a model of the cosmos as the Greeks understood it. As you turned the crank to any date, pointers showed the position of the sun and the moon against the 12 signs of the zodiac. A tiny ball, painted half silver and half black, rotated to show the exact phase of the moon on that day. There's strong evidence it also tracked the 5 planets the Greeks knew: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, although that part of the front is damaged, so some of the planetary gearing is still a reconstruction, not a certainty. Even so, what survives is staggering: a mechanical model of the solar system you could hold on your lap. But the back of the device is where it becomes almost eerie. There were 2 great spiral dials. The upper one tracked a 19-year calendar the Greeks used to reconcile the moon and the sun. The lower spiral did something remarkable. Using a 223-month cycle the Babylonians had discovered, it predicted eclipses, both solar and lunar, years, even decades in advance. Little symbols around the dial told you not just that an eclipse was coming, but roughly when and even what color the moon might appear. And tucked among the dials was a smaller one, that tracked a 4-year cycle of athletic games, including the Olympics. A machine that predicted the sky and kept the calendar of human events, all from turning one handle. For decades, the mechanism resisted every attempt to understand it. An early researcher named Derek de Sola Price made the first serious study in the 1970s. He got a lot wrong, but he opened the door. Others, like Michael Wright, built working bronze replicas and proved the back dials were spirals. Then, after 2005, everything changed. Scientists used high-resolution X-ray scanning to see inside the fragments without cutting them open. Suddenly, hidden gear teeth and thousands of tiny Greek inscriptions appeared, text that worked almost like an instruction manual etched onto the device. A team led by researcher Tony Freeth published the breakthrough in the journal Nature, and the modern understanding of the mechanism was born. But notice, it took the most advanced imaging of the 21st century to understand a device built before the birth of Christ. So who built it? This is one of the great open questions. We don't know the maker's name. The strongest theory points to the island of Rhodes, which was a famous center of Greek astronomy and engineering, possibly connected to the philosopher Posidonius. Some clues in the game's calendar even hint at northwestern Greece. You may have heard the name Archimedes attached to it, and while the mechanism almost certainly grew out of a tradition of thinkers like him, Archimedes himself died decades before it was likely made, so we can't credit him directly. What we can say is this: the Roman writer Cicero described similar star modeling devices in his time, so this was probably not a one-off miracle. It was the surviving piece of a lost tradition, and the others may still be out there or gone forever. And the research isn't finished. It's still producing surprises. In 2024, astronomers at the University of Glasgow took on a small but stubborn puzzle. One of the mechanism's rings, the calendar ring, was broken, and no one knew exactly how many holes it originally had. Using statistical techniques originally built to analyze gravitational waves, ripples in space-time from colliding black holes, they concluded the ring most likely had about 354 holes. That number matters because 354 is the length of a lunar year, not the 365 of a solar one. In other words, fresh evidence that the device followed the Greek moon-based calendar. Think about that. 21st century black hole mathematics used to read a 2,000-year-old Greek calendar. Now here's where I have to be honest with you, because this is where the internet gets it wrong. In 2025, two researchers ran a computer simulation of the gears and found that given the manufacturing errors measured in the surviving fragments, the mechanism might have jammed every few months. Maybe it didn't run smoothly at all. Headlines instantly screamed that the Antikythera Mechanism was just a toy or never worked. But that's not what the researchers actually said. They never used the word toy. In fact, they pointed out the more likely explanation themselves, that 2,000 years of corrosion has warped the gears, so the errors we measure today are probably far bigger than the originals. Their study hasn't even been peer-reviewed yet, so the honest answer is, we don't fully know how well it ran, and anyone who tells you it's settled is selling you something. And let's clear away the myths because the truth doesn't need them. No, it was not built by aliens. Every function it has is fully explained by Greek and Babylonian astronomy that we can read in their own writings. No, it is not a time machine, despite what a certain Indiana Jones movie suggested. And no, it is not proof of some lost super civilization. It's proof of something better, that ordinary human beings with bronze, files, and brilliant minds modeled the heavens 2,000 years ago. The real story is more impressive than any fantasy, because it's true. So why does a broken bronze box matter 2,000 years later? Because it changed what we believe about ourselves. It tells us that human ingenuity isn't a straight line marching upward. Knowledge can be found and then completely lost. The skill to build this vanished for 14 centuries. It makes you wonder what else was lost. What other wonders sank with other ships, or crumbled in libraries that burned, and the mechanism still hasn't given up all its secrets. Divers are excavating the Antikythera shipwreck again right now, and they hope more pieces, maybe even a second device, are still down there in the dark. 2,000 years ago, someone sat down with bronze and a vision of the cosmos and built a machine to hold the universe in their hands. We're still piecing it together. If these are the kinds of questions you don't want to die without wondering about, subscribe. There's a whole world of them, and we're only just getting started.